Hello, my name is Kate and I'm 29 years old. I am Scottish, 3/4 Scottish, 1/4 Irish, but I spent my whole life in Scotland and consider myself Scottish. However, since June of this year, 2024, I haven't lived in Scotland or any part of the UK. Firstly, I lived in Greenland for 4 months, which is very random, but I had a really cool job opportunity there. And then that was basically a fun folly, with afterwards the plan being to move to Hong Kong to teach English, which is where I've been for the past 2 months. And this is now my home. You know, I'm not saying forever, but definitely for at least a year. And I want to talk to you a little bit about why I feel that way. So, small amount of context. This channel that I'm posting this on, it's got like 100 subscribers, so it's completely irrelevant. However, what I want it to be is a channel where I interview people. I interview people because I really enjoy that. I love talking to new people, I love learning new experiences. But why I'm kind of breaking the mold today and just talking to the camera is because the last person I interviewed was a guy called Daryl Solis. And Daryl, apologies, I've not talked to my GoPro before. And Daryl did a viral video about leaving the UK and why he chose to do that. And as I was having that conversation with him and reflecting on it afterwards, I realised there was so much more that I wanted to say as someone myself in a position who's chose to leave the UK. So let me tell you why I chose to leave the UK, why I feel better already for it, and why I would, with a heavy heart, and I mean that seriously, I do love my country a lot, but with a heavy heart, I would genuinely recommend that if you're watching this as a young person in the UK, you consider moving. So the first reason is that you're genuinely paid shit. Like, even if you think you're on a good wage, half of that goes in taxes. That's if you're on a really good wage, right? And if you're not on a good wage, the reason you don't pay half in taxes is because the government knows that you need that money literally to survive. So the money you're making isn't to have fun with, it's literally to get you through the month so that you can work for the next month. We live in a country where if you try to better yourself by going to university, the interest you pay on your education means that it's basically guaranteed that for the rest of your working life, you're 10%, 9%, so 10% of that is going to be taken away from your salary. And if you're someone who isn't making that much to begin with, or did a degree that's completely vital for the economy, you might resent that for the rest of your life, 9% of your education but is taken away because of your education. Your choice to better yourself costs you so much money. And if you're like me, then you will have graduated but never had a graduate job. So you'll be paying 9% just for the experience, which quite frankly is bollocks, because, you know, for me personally, half of my experience of university was during COVID, so the experience wasn't there. But also just in terms of how I feel as someone with, you know, an okay amount of intelligence, I don't attribute much of what I've learnt in life to my university experience at all. It's just not worth it. It's very frustrating to owe a government so much money when you just don't feel that you've got much back in return. You know, and it's the same with taxes. Look, I grew up left-leaning. I'm still left-leaning in principle, in theory, but it's, if you can't see where your taxes are going, it's so stressful. It's so stressful that such a high percentage of your income can be taken away from you when you know what you could do with that to better your life, and in the process of bettering your life, better the lives of the people around you and society. You know, if you could get a house, and if you could, you know, invest in some skill sets, blah blah blah, with that money, that would be good for the economy. That would be good for your community. But instead you throw it down a money hole. That's really what it feels like. I had poor mental health a few years ago, and I was told it was a priority that I get therapy. And I was put on a waiting list for therapy, and 15 months later I got a call to start therapy. And by then I had to decline it because my address had changed. So the area that I was entitled to it for, I was no longer in. And I was considered critical. I was the priority, and it took 15 months. Now, I got to sort myself out in that case. So, but so many people don't. Some people literally die. And I'm gutted for them. I have a younger sister who is quite severely disabled, and so she's just, it's a very clear-cut situation where she's someone who completely needs support and will never, you know, will never get a house based on, you know, of the money she's saved or anything. She's entitled to supported living accommodation, and she got on the waiting list this year. And in Dumfries and Galloway, it could be 5 to 10 years before she gets supported living accommodation. So in 10 years' time, theoretically, could be when she moves out of mum's. By then she will be in her late 30s. This is someone with dreams to be independent. You know, and by then my mum will be in her late 60s and will have looked after my sister for you know, 38 years. Obviously you should be such a primary part of caring for your loved ones when they're sick or disabled. That's how it's always worked, but the idea that there's basically no chance of support, and the idea that, you know, unless you're mega rich, you just have to accept that situation. It's such a disservice to my sister. It's a disservice to my mother, who has paid taxes her entire life, who's always contributed so much to this economy. Now that it's time for her to get something back, she's not going to, or, you know, at least not for basically ever. And also, when I think about the fact that my sister's very well cared for by my mum is someone who enjoys caring for my sister and, you know, can basically do it. When I consider that that's the best case scenario, but out there in Scotland there are so many far more compromising situations where they will also be told it'll take 10 years. And, you know, lives are falling apart in those situations. People are being abused. Finances are being ruined. It's very upsetting. It's very upsetting to me. If I could just circle back to mental health in the UK, I think every aspect of how mental health is treated in the UK is so damaging for the mentally unwell. Because first of all, if you're a young person, you're quite obsessed with mental health. We're always analysing our feelings. We're always diagnosing ourselves based on stuff that we see online. We're constantly talking about mental health. But we're stuck at that stage where we're over-analysing ourselves, but no real help is given. And that's the worst of both. You know, what you want is that you get the opportunity to be self-aware, and you get the opportunity to explore who you are, vulnerabilities and all, but that you don't stay in that stage where you're kind of thinking, oh, who am I? What am I? Why do I feel like this? That stage is important because it then takes you to the next stage, which is action. But we don't get to have action when the NHS just can't support you. You have to, and I'm sorry to be blunt, you have to literally have a suicide attempt or something crazy before you're urgent enough that they can really prioritise you. And then what does it mean that, like, you know, even when that happens, does it mean that you get to make a full recovery and you're really looked after, and a thorough investigation into your mental health is done from a holistic perspective as well as a medical one? Very unlikely. And if that's true for mental health, it would be true for physical health as well. Yeah, I think because of these riots that happened this summer, it's just obvious that people are very unhappy. Now, you know, depending on where you sit politically, you might feel that that unhappiness is legitimately because of immigration, or you might feel that that's misplaced anger and that it's actually about other things, or you might feel it's a bit of both. But either way, people in the UK are livid. They're so angry because we were brought up being told we lived in one of the best countries in the world. You know, that you were so lucky compared to other places. Now, of course, that's true, but if every month you're working just to get through that month, and you are living in a place that isn't that nice, that's taking all your money in rent to pay for some, like, rich person's 7th holiday this year, and, you know, you don't feel respected at work, the weather isn't nice, you're becoming increasingly anxious because you're aware that you're aging and that you don't have a pension, and that you're never going to be able to afford a house, and oh shit, like, can I even consider if I want kids? You know, because if I can't even afford kids, then is it even good for me to even consider if I can have kids? And if I can't have kids, and I don't have my own place, and I've no money, do I even want to date? Do I, you know, even want to feel that I have an opinion? Do I want to, you know, really pursue my dreams? Can I? It takes so much from you. It's very upsetting. I didn't feel this upset a few years ago. A few years ago, I would have said, look, everywhere's got their problems, which is true. And I would have said, you know, a lot of this comes from a lack of perspective. If you go to other places, you'd realise that you've got it better. And the people love to moan, etc., etc. Well, I've now been to quite a few places, I'm very lucky to say. And of course it's true that everyone's got their problems, but this idea that the UK is better than everywhere else is just bollocks. You know? That mindset we have is really holding us back. It really stops us from feeling that we can complain. Yeah. So what made my mind change a few years ago is that I graduated from a pretty good uni, if I may say so. I applied for a shit ton of graduate jobs and I couldn't find any. And for a while I was actually okay with that, because it's like, well, this is, you know, you're going to spend the whole of your life in a good job. So if you have 2 or 3 years where you don't, and you're doing waitressing, which is fun, but not making you a lot of money, then that's cool. You've no responsibilities right now anyway. Anyway, years and years went by where I was always applying and doing this minimum wage job waitressing, which I did enjoy it, but, you know, there's no money in it, there's no respect, and eventually it really compromises your CV if it's all you can say you've done. how I managed to be a waitress, so someone on minimum wage, but still not live at home with my parents, was that I was a live-in waitress. So I worked in a hotel that I also lived in staff accommodation on the side of. And the hotel, it's nothing that dramatic, but it was just one of these hotels where like the managers above you make 50p more, but they're dead arsey to you. You know, they think that makes them it, even though they're not necessarily better at the job, they've just been there longer or whatever. And then, you know, the people that own the hotel are quite out of touch. You know, they don't pay you extra at Christmas, they don't, you've worked for them for ages, but they don't know your name, etc, etc. I found that I was becoming quite resentful that I worked there, considering my education, which I understand is very snobby. I'm just being honest about how I was feeling. And I was beginning to feel like I'm behind in life. This isn't where I want to be. Because I'm working for less money than I need. And I'm working to make someone else millions who I don't care for, because they don't care for me. And I enjoy the job in that I like interacting with other people. I like giving people good experiences, but this isn't my passion, you know. But then I slowly realised, Kate, you've got it good. Most people your age in the UK either live with their parents, or they live in a city and they get to have all the independence that comes with that, and all the, like, you know, some cool memories going out drinking and stuff, but they pay a shit ton for that. So even if you're in a good job, like say you're making 50 grand, which would be twice as much as what I was making as a waitress, once you take off the tax and you take off the very high rent, these people probably have less expendable income at the end of each month than you do. In fact, I know that they do. And that put things into perspective for me, because then I had to realise your life's not what you want it to be, Kate. Your life doesn't feel that good right now, but you have got it good in comparison to a significant percentage of people your age in your country. And that's when I was faced with a choice. Do I accept that? Obviously I'm always a fan of gratitude, but do I accept that to the extent that I just bury down my frustrations? Or do I do something about that? And that's why I decided that I was gonna move abroad. Not because abroad is perfect, but because I need a palate cleanse from the UK. It's making me sad. I need a palate cleanse from the distrust in the air and the increasing anxiety in the air. And I need a break from being so anxious when I get each paycheck that I've got to save this, like, what can I save each month so that, you know, if I save this and this and this, in 5 years I might have a deposit, in 10 years, you know, and having to sacrifice quite basic experiences like going to the pub, or, you know, going for a meal out with my boyfriend when we were dating, because that 50 quid with every little helps so much, blah blah blah, you know. Really feeling you had to just not live so that one day you could live. And look, I'm all for that as a short-term strategy, but thinking about that in terms of the 10 years of your life, so that you can have 30 grand, so that can be a deposit, which is then the start of paying a mortgage for the rest of your life. I think things are going to get worse in the UK. A lot of people are going to blame Labour for that. I think, you know, I'm still open-minded about the Labour Party, but as in the damage that's been done in the 12 years prior is still in effect. So even that is going to be tough. It's not just UK's government policies that is making the UK and the Western world a tough place to live. We also spend all of our time on social media. It drains us mentally, even when we don't realise it. We don't socialise in real life as much as we should. And we far less people are having kids and you know, being in meaningful relationships. It's sad. It's sad that you miss out in these things in life during the most developed period of civilization. I'm not someone with any of the answers. I'm just someone that really felt I actually just had to do this video because talking to Daryl, realised that I have been suppressing a lot of emotions about the opportunities in my country as a young person. I've been suppressing them out of guilt that other people have it worse. I've been suppressing them out of disbelief, considering how often we're told that Britain is amazing. And I've been repressing them because a lot of these problems I blamed on myself. You know, that I wasn't doing well in life, or as well as I could have, you know. But so many more people are talking out than ever before that Britain is really going down the shitter. And I'm very grateful to those people because they've helped me articulate my feelings and they've helped validate my feelings, and they've also made me a little hopeful in that the more people that start talking about it, the more chance there's something that will actually be done about it. Yeah, anyway, that's my 2 cents. Like I say, it's whatever. But yeah, it's New Year's Eve in Hong Kong. I'm now gonna go out and watch the fireworks. And I really, really wish you a beautiful 2025. Okay, lots of love.